In a snowy mountain, a climber gets out of his tent and notices something very strange from afar. He walks towards what appears to be a glowing sphere and makes contact with its surface. A bright light shines towards him and he becomes unconscious. When he wakes up, he notices a scar on his hand where his DNA is taken, but the glowing object has disappeared. Helen is an astrobiologist and a professor teaching her students about bacteria. When the class finishes, her lab assistant tries seducing her with his hormones, but unfortunately, he's not Keanu Reeves and she puts him in the friend zone. Helen goes back to her home where her 8-year-old stepson Jacob lives. It is hinted that Helen's husband is no longer with them as Jacob treasures his personal items. While making dinner, she receives a phone call where the government requires her assistance immediately. She opens the front door and sees government agents surrounding her house. With no choice, she leaves her son with the neighbor and gets in the car. She demands to know what's going on, but the agent can't tell her as he doesn't know either. She arrives in a military airfield and enters the helicopter where a collection of scientists from different fields all gather in the same group. They get to a makeshift military base and she's greeted by Michael, a NASA official and old friend of hers who brings her to the debriefing about what's going on. Apparently, an object moving 1/10 the speed of light has entered our solar system and altered its direction towards Earth just moments ago. They have about 70 minutes before impact, and the government plans to launch missiles at it in order to stop the collision with Earth. Worried about her son, Helen calls Jacob and tells him to hide in the basement, but she realizes that if impact occurs, there is nowhere anyone can hide from this disaster. The military takes the scientists close to the projected impact zone, but as the object gets closer to the Earth, their missile launch system malfunctions, crippling their only defense. Surprisingly, the object is slowing down as it approaches Earth. A massive glowing light appears in the sky and flies towards the public park where it lands in front of everyone. They move closer to the object, and it appears to be the same sphere that was in the beginning of the movie, but much larger. The military arrives and surrounds the object, pointing their guns at it and ready to fire at any moment. The sphere glows with bright light, and a silhouette of a creature approaches. Helen moves forward in amazement and tries to make contact, but a gunshot is heard and the creature drops to the ground while Helen holds it in her arms. Suddenly, a towering figure walks out and begins shutting off all the weapons from the military. It then makes a loud screech, paralyzing everyone. It tries to attack Helen, but stops at the alien's command and proceeds to move back. The military brings the alien back into their laboratory and tries their best to save the creature. Although they succeeded at stabilizing its heartbeat, the outer skin begins peeling off and they're shocked to see a human lying inside. At the same time, numerous other sphere-like structures have landed on Earth, spreading in every corner of the world. The satellite system has also been disabled, crippling the military. The doctors learned that the alien took samples of animals' DNA on Earth and was essentially reborn into the body of a human being in order to survive on the planet. The alien's body has also grown exponentially, already reaching the age of an adult male by this time. They approach the now conscious alien and demands to know his business on Earth. We learn that he represents a collection of civilizations that exists all around Earth, and his name is Klaatu. He wants to speak to the UN, but Regina, the Defense Secretary of the United States, refuses to allow him. She asks him what he wants from our planet, to which the alien responds that the Earth does not belong to humans. Frustrated at his apparent disobedience, Regina plans to have Klaatu sedated and tortured at the great disapproval from everyone else. Helen disobeys her order to sedate Klaatu and only injected water into his system rather than sedating him while telling him to run. They take the alien to do a lie test, but Klaatu manages to set himself free by using electrokinesis powers and breaks out of the military facility. He arrives at the train station and plans to leave, but faints to the ground from the gun wounds earlier. He manages to call Helen, who comes quickly to the station to pick him up with Jacob. She wants to know if he's a friend to humans, to which Klaatu replies that he's a friend to Earth. On the other side, the military tries their best efforts to destroy the giant humanoid, but their attacks are useless at making any damages as the machine destroys all the human weapons. Klaatu has a conversation with Jacob while Helen is driving. The stepson shows extreme hostility towards the alien and believes that humans should kill him right away. He wants to know what Klaatu thinks that humans should do to this alien, but Klaatu doesn't believe that humans have any choice either way. They stop at a McDonald's and Klaatu meets another alien from their civilization. They talk about the violent nature of humanity and how humans seems to be incapable of change. With this confirmation in his prior experience, Klaatu decides to proceed with the plan of destroying human civilization. Surprisingly, the other alien refuses to leave Earth even though he will die alongside humanity. He believes that with all the negative aspects humans display, they also have a side which deserves to be treasured. He loves the family he's built on this planet and can no longer leave them for anything else. Helen drives the alien to another location while they wait in the car. Klaatu goes towards the pond and summons a sphere which appears from under the water. All the animals from everywhere around the world begins going into the spheres, and they all eventually levitate away from Earth into the atmosphere with glowing lights. The only sphere that doesn't appear to have left is the largest one where the humanoid machine is guarding over. Klaatu comes out from the forest and Helen pleads for him to tell her what is really going on. The alien explains that humans are killing the Earth and he's here to save the planet. There are very few planets in the universe that can support life, and Earth is too valuable to be destroyed. As they argue about what to do with humanity, a police officer manages to find their location, but when he tries to arrest the alien, Klaatu kills him immediately. However, he then was able to resurrect him as he only wanted the officer out of the way and did not want to kill him unnecessarily. His actions shock and frightens both Helen and her stepson. Helen begs him to spare humanity as she believes that human beings can change. Klaatu disagrees as he tried to speak with the human leaders with reason but only resulted in violence. Helen quickly explains that Regina does not represent humanity and she would gladly take him to someone who does. On the other side, the government agents finally figured out that the spheres are ships which attempt to save the animals on Earth, but they fear what comes after may wipe out humanity. They manage to capture the humanoid machine by not using any violence and proceeds to bring it to their underground facility. Helen takes Klaatu to meet a Nobel Prize-winning physicist, and Klaatu demonstrates his understanding of the universe by solving the equations easily on the blackboard. The man immediately realizes that he's the alien from the news, and they begin a deep conversation about human nature. The physicist thinks that humanity can change and learn from their lessons, but only if they're pushed to the brink of destruction. Similarly, we learned that Klaatu's civilization also undergone dramatic changes when they had to salvage their dying son. The physicist pleads for Klaatu to not take away this moment from humanity where human civilization can finally transcend into something greater. Their debate is cut short when the military shows up around the facility as Jacob called them because of his antagonism against the alien. They try to escape quickly away from the house and into the forest, but Helen is captured by the helicopters and taken away. 2 more helicopters arrive towards them and prepares to shoot at Klaatu, but he manages to disable them with his powers and sends them crashing to the ground. Frightened at what he just witnessed the alien do, Jacob runs to the opposite direction, believing that Klaatu is chasing after him, but trips and nearly falls to his death. Klaatu saves the boy and calmly tells him to move forwards away from the danger. Jacob pleads for the alien to bring him home, to which Klaatu agrees. Helen is brought to the Secretary of Defense and tries to convince her to let her go. Helen states that the only way to save humanity is to let her convince Klaatu that they can change. Regina refuses her pleas and proceeds to try and destroy the humanoid robot. The scientists try to continue to run experiments on the alien machine, but their every attempts have ended in failure. Suddenly, the worker inside the room begins bleeding as his suit is being chewed up by nanoscopic robots from the humanoid. They panic and tries to incinerate everything, but the robot stands unharmed, while everything around it begins to break down in the molecular level. The nanobots rush out of the military base and proceeds to destroy everything while becoming larger as it consumes and replicates. After receiving news that their facility is destroyed, Regina chooses to allow Helen to leave as a last attempt to save humanity from destruction. Helen manages to call her son, and Jacob arranges for them to meet in a location that he has chosen. Being saved by the alien, Jacob begins seeing him from a different perspective and apologizes for trying to kill him earlier. Jacob brings Klaatu to where they'll meet his mother, which turns out to be the cemetery where his father is buried. He begs the alien to revive his father, but Klaatu tells the boy that there are some things that he can't do. He tells Jacob to not be sad as nothing in this universe truly dies, they simply transform into something else instead. Feeling hopeless, Jacob tells Klaatu to leave as he kneels in despair. Jacob cries in front of the gravestone as his mother finally arrives to him and tries to comfort him. They both admit that they miss Jacob's father a great deal, and they embrace as tears fall from their eyes. Klaatu watches the mother and son and begins empathizing for their loss. He starts to understand that there is more to humans than just destruction. He decides to give humans a second chance, but is unsure whether if he can stop the nanobots. Michael takes them towards the sphere while they're chased by military units from behind. As they enter the vicinity, a barrage of missiles are fired towards their vehicle, which flips their car over. Michael dies in the accident while Klaatu escapes with Helen and Jacob into shelter. The nanobots swarm towards the park as their numbers block out the sunlight. Jacob becomes weak and faints as the nanobots have entered his body. The mother begs the alien to save her son, which Klaatu manages to do by containing the nanites in his own body. He looks at Helen and tells her that the physicist was right about humans changing at the precipice, and proceeds to enter the cloud of nanobots trying to disable them. Klaatu glows in a bright light and gets consumed by the nanites, which triggers a large shockwave that disables everything around them. All the nanobots fall from the sky as everything electronic on the planet has become disabled as well. Helen and Jacob walks towards the park as they stare at the sphere in amazement. The object levitates and eventually leaves Earth, giving humans a second chance.